good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm really excited to be here with you today. We've got a great presentation. We're going to talk about Power Automate in Microsoft Teams. It's a great topic. We've got Morris, who's one of our cloud solution architects in our engineering team. Morris is a great speaker and really enjoy hearing him talk about this topic. So I believe in the chat we've posted, Sarah, correct me, the presentation that will go along and the recording and the walk along with this content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Morris, if you want to go to the next slide. All of this content that we'll be presenting today will be located on the healthcare and life science blog. So I actually just put a direct link for it. So as soon as today's session is over, I will post the recording in that link. In addition, if you want to follow along with Morris today or just save the PDF on the steps that he'll be reviewing today, it's located right there on the blog site. In addition, we also have Brianna, who will be joining us towards the end of the session. She'll be sharing some great content. I will make sure to update with that content she'll be sharing today in that same link. So that's your one-stop shop. And Jonathan, you want to go over some housekeeping for us?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. This is great information. Well, today, this was going to be recorded and publicly available on the HLS Community Connection Yammer site that we have, as well as the blog. And I want to make sure that you can go up to the three-dot ellipse, view some live captions if you like. Hey, use reactions. I know Morris wants to see how things are going. Thumbs up, right? He might ask for reaction. Please use the chat for any questions you may have. We've got people standing by. And perhaps we might be using a poll or a survey later on for some responses. Morris, one more. So awesome. Appreciate that. But can't move forward unless we're acknowledge our digital event code and conduct for the Microsoft Health and Life Science, where at Microsoft mission is to empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And this includes events like this and gatherings, including on our digital platform, where we seek a respectful, friendly, and fun, inclusive environment for all participants. So we encourage everyone to assist in welcoming in a very safe environment. Well, thank you. Morris, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jonathan and Sarah. All right. Well, thank you again, team, for inviting me today to speak a little bit about Power Automate in Teams, right? Hopefully, some of you, I'm hoping, have heard about Power Automate before, and I'll kind of I don't have a official poll, but if you can give me some feedback, give me some thumbs up if any of you have used Power Automate before. Maybe not inside of Teams, but let me see some thumbs up if you've used Power Automate in Teams. Or raise your hand. That's fine. We can lower those. Okay, just so I can get a feeling of how many of you are new to the Power Automate service. Awesome. So a few of you, it looks like. So I'll have some experts here that can help Sarah, Jonathan, and Jonathan answer some questions here as well. So, all right, well, let's get started. Again, I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, focusing on modern work, specifically Power Platform, from governing, administration, all the way to actually building cloud flows in Power Automate to drive various numbers of automation, extending the 365 services all the way to building automation with third-party services as well. And then I also have a lot of fun building Power Apps, which may be a topic for a different future session. But let's jump in really quick into what I'm going to cover on the session today. So let's see, really quick, I see, I think one of our attendees is having an issue hearing. I'm assuming thumbs up. Am I coming loud and clear for the rest of you? Just to make sure that it's not just, okay. So I see a hand up. Okay, awesome, perfect. Thank you, just wanted to double check there. All right, so before I show you, and before all of us, if you want to follow along with a flow together, we are going to talk a little bit about what Power Automate is, right? For those of you that have never heard of it or never used it, we'll talk about what Power Automate is, what a cloud flow entails. Then we'll jump into Microsoft Teams, and we're going to learn how to install the Power Automate application in Teams so that you don't even have to go outside of Teams to create and manage your flows. I'll show you how we can easily do that inside of Teams. And then we'll jump into our first flow that we're going to create today. And we're going to create one from a template, which is one of our more popular flows that, we'd like folks to get started with. So you can kind of see the power of Power Automate. And you don't even go into the Power Automate Studio. You will see how it's very easy to get started from a template. So we'll knock that one out. And if time allows, I'll show you how to create one from scratch as well. We'll create a flow that sends a notification to a particular Teams channel when a document is created on a document library. So the content today, I've generalized it. I know my audience, right? A lot of us are within, the healthcare and life sciences, but I've made it pretty general to where, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Power Automate can be used to automate a lot of our different workflows to save you time so that you can focus on more important things throughout your day. So, and at the very end, as Sarah said, I'm going to kick it over to Brianna, who is going to share an innovation guide that also talks about and gives us some tips on how to bring in some other services into Microsoft Teams. All right, let's jump into my first slide. And I won't be in the deck a whole lot. As soon as I'm done with this slide, I'm going to jump over to my demo tenant. And that's when I'll give you a clue if you want to follow along. Hopefully, for those of you that have a couple of monitors, you'll be able to keep the session on one and then open up Teams on your other screen so that you can follow along with my steps on accomplishing the end goals for today. So let's go ahead and get started here with what is Power Automate. So what is Power Automate? This is a service that we get as part of M365. It's been around now for 5 years, maybe 6. Time flies by. And ultimately, it helps you work smarter by automating workflows across many different apps and services, right? Especially, it allows us to extend the Microsoft 365 services, right? Sometimes there's a gap in functionality that, that's not there, right? We want to automate something. We want to automate a workflow, maybe a notification, and that's where Power Automate comes in. I typically, when I'm teaching some of my level 100 classes, right, another way that I explain what Power Automate is, it's kind of like inbox rules for your Exchange mailbox, right? A lot of us are familiar with, we've been working a lot inside of email, and sometimes we have to create inbox rules to organize, when this email comes from this person, move it to this folder. It's kind of like that, but on steroids, right? It goes outside of Exchange. It can work with any 365 service, and outside of that, right, we're able to connect to third-party services. So there's 900 plus connectors today that we can use in Power Automate to build workflows. So some of the common examples that we can do use Power Automate for is get notifications. Like I mentioned, one of the flows that hopefully we'll get to create today is when a new document is created on a particular SharePoint site that you have access to, right? That typically doesn't send a notification out of the box. We can create a flow, super easy flow, to send you a message in Teams. We could have it send you an email. If you have the Power Automate app in your mobile device, it could also send you a notification there, like native to the phone OS. Another common one is copied files. We can create a flow that when a document is created on one particular SharePoint site document library, we can have a flow run, and that is going to create a copy on some other document library. We can collect data as well. One of the common examples there that I really love putting together is using Microsoft Forms, which is another service. I won't get into that one a whole lot, but I can send a survey out with Microsoft Forms or a quiz, and anytime that form is filled out, I can kick off a flow that is going to collect all those responses, store them on a data source like SharePoint list, and drive further automation there. And approvals, which is another big way of using Power Automate and leveraging the approvals action to get a timestamp of someone saying, hey, I approve this process. Maybe we're working with documents that need to be approved before they can be published. So these are 4 of the most common ways of using Power Automate today. In a flow itself, here in a little bit, I'll take once we create our first one, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what the flow actually looks like. But one thing that you need to remember with the cloud flow within Power Automate is that it has 2 main pieces. Every flow is going to have one trigger. That is basically what kicks off this flow, whatever it is doing. And then it's going to have at least one or many actions, right? What do you want to do once the flow triggers? So behind the scenes, we can have some simple flows that just have a trigger and one action, or we can have, several actions that just happen, right, one after another, or we can create, we can make them happen in tangent, right? There's very efficient ways of creating your flows. But today, right, I'm going to start pretty basic, and we're going to create a super awesome flow here in a little bit that will send any message that you want to put on a OneNote, and you'll see how that works here. Super excited about that one. So that is in a quick, summary what Power Automate is within 365. So the first thing that we want to do, and this is where I'm going to jump off the slide deck, and we're going to go into Microsoft Teams. We're going to install the Power Automate app in Microsoft Teams, and that is done through a few steps. So let me jump off from the slide deck to my demo tenant really quick. So I'll be using Microsoft Teams on the web browser because I'm joined on my desktop client with my Microsoft account. So I'm not able to show you the full desktop client, but as you know, we can all access Microsoft Teams by using a browser session by going to teams.microsoft.com. So this is where, if you want to follow along, open up go back to your main Teams client, maybe move it, put it side by side. And if you just want to follow along with me as well, and if you want to set up this flow or follow the steps to install, you can do that later as well. As Sarah said, we provided those PDFs with step by step on what you need to do. So, okay, let's jump in and get Power Automate started. So the first step that we're going to do is in the left rail. All of us are familiar with the left rail in Teams. There's this apps button here. Let's click on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for, you guessed it, Power Automate. And this will bring up the Power Automate app published by, yours truly, the Microsoft Corporation. And all you need to do is click on this. And I'm going to click Add. When I click Add, this is basically installing this application for myself so that I can easily use it inside of Teams without me opening a new tab and going directly to the Power Automate service. So for some of you that have never used Power Automate before, the moment you click on Add, you may get a prompt right off the bat that has you set your region and language. So make sure you set that to, if you're in the US, and so set your region settings accordingly. And once that happens, right, you'll land on the homepage. And you'll be able to see, likely, if this is the first time using FlowRite, you won't see anything like you see here. I actually have some flows already created for this account on my demo tenant. So just I'll give you a few seconds here to make sure for anyone that's following, that you get it added. If there's any issues, or if for some reason, those of you following along with me step by step, if you don't see the Power Automate app when you go to apps, that is likely because our IT admin friends may have blocked Power Automate. If that is the case, let us know. Let me know. I'll have a conversation with them to ask them to please, I don't want Power Automate to be blocked because we can gain a lot of functionality. Okay, and I see a comment that says, I got an open, no add button. Cleo, that tells me that you've already installed it. So at some point, you already installed it. So for those of you that see open instead of add, you've already at some point in the past installed it for you. So that leads me to my next step, right? Once you open it, if we go back to the left rail, one thing I want to encourage you to do for easy access is to right click. So you see, here's my Power Automate icon for this app. Right click on it and pin it. This will make it stay on that left rail. And if for some reason, right, you've been pinning a lot of apps, which, we want you to do for better organization. I know we can only show you so many, but if I click these three dots, this is going to show me, right, what apps I pinned for faster access so that you don't have to go and search for it again. So highly recommend to right click it, pin it if you haven't done that. That way, when you're ready to start building more flows or staying on top of your existing flows, you're able to do that. So I see some comments that it's spinning. It should take it, not more than a minute to install. So let's give it I'll give it a few seconds before I move forward, so that some of you can. Okay, yeah, so it sounds like it's still spinning. Maybe we're like taxing the system. Highly doubt it, because Power Automate is one of our popular ones. So while some of us are waiting, for those of you that we were already here, you're kind of with me, I'll stay in here. I'm not going to move to the next step. I'm going to talk a little bit about what is shown to us here on the Home tab, just to be able to help you navigate. One of the reasons that I really, really like using Power Automate inside of Teams is because I have this status column. So this shows me, right, all of my flows currently, because we're using Power Automate inside of Teams. By default, there's a filter here on the top right that says Microsoft Teams Flows. By default, we only show you flows that leverage the Microsoft Teams connector, which is also a neat thing, right? So for example, if I switch this to all flows, this is going to show me all flows regardless of what connectors this use. But what I was saying earlier, I really like this status column because this quickly tells me if that particular flow is on or off. If we were to go to the Power Automate service, for you to see whether a flow is on or off, you actually have to click into it. So you have to click into the details, and then you have to look at the top menu here, right? So I really, really like that that quick, status column here. It's one of the first things that I remember, like, hey, I wish we put that on the full service, right? Doesn't make sense that it's just in Teams, but there's some advantages to doing that here. So I'm just keeping an eye on chat. I see some folks are saying maybe, yeah, if you do not see Power Automate when you search on it from here, then that tells us that it is likely blocked. So if that is the case, just follow along. Let us know. Like I said, I am happy to have a conversation with your IT admin with your Teams administrator, and get into it with them. Be like, hey, why are we blocking Power Automate? There's a lot of functionality we can gain, as I mentioned. But yeah, if you don't see it here, that might be the case for those of you that don't even find it there. So let me come back to Power Automate there. Awesome. Yeah. So, okay. So that is, we'll wait for this to load here, right? And then, so at the very top, it gives us the list of flows and whether they're turned on or off. It tells us the type, whether it is automated or instant. Instant typically means that I'm going to trigger it manually by taking an action, like hitting a button. So, and if it's spinning, so looking at chat, if it's spinning, one thing you can do is go back to like chat, go back to something else in Teams, and then come back to it. Sometimes that's kind of like, Teams may be stuck on some cookie, or you can also just refresh. Well, if you happen to be using Teams on the web, but just switch to something else, come back to it, and promise that may make it, respond. So try that there, and hopefully that works for some of you that are having issues there. Okay, so at the very bottom, the other thing that we expose right off the bat is how to get started with templates, right? So for those of you starting with Power Automate, no need to come in here and start from scratch, right? You might be tempted to come in here and say, hey, I want to create a new flow, and you're going to have to do one from scratch. And we've added some enhancements where even if you click on here, I'm still going to present some screens to you to encourage you to start from a template, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. Go through, search to see what you might want to do, and guarantee there might be a template already that you can get started from. No need to start from scratch and waste time. Look at the template, see if there's one that's available to you. So that the moment I clicked on that, you see how I went from home to create, which is that create tab, right? And from there, if I wanted to start from scratch, then I would do so, and I'll show that what that looks like here in a little bit. So this takes us to the next step. So we have it installed. We're in Power Automate. What next? How do we get started? So let's jump into the creation of that first flow that I want to demo, which is sending a message, or better said, saving a message to a OneNote notebook. So, and as you can already see, right, and from your side, it should be that third one from the top row. It's going to be this one. But before I click into it and get started, one thing I recommend for this particular flow, kind of like a prerequisite to have ready, is go into OneNote. So if you don't happen to have a OneNote already, make sure that you have an existing OneNote notebook that we can use for this purpose. This flow also works with Team OneNote notebooks. So if you happen to have an access to a Team that's stored on the SharePoint site, you could also use that one for setting this up. But in this case, I'm going to use a personal notebook that's stored on this account's OneDrive for Business account, which is this one here. And what I recommend to do, OneNote does not need to be in Teams, right? I'll show you. We can add a OneNote notebook as a tab in Teams. I actually have that set up on my team over here. When I go, I'll show you that in a second. But no, this can be a OneNote that you access through the OneNote app. That's totally fine. Just make sure that you have a OneNote notebook. that we can go into. And the next thing you want to have is create a custom section. So you can click add a section. I already did that on mine, and call it something like notes from MS Teams or something custom that you know what we called it. That way we have this ready. And when we go to set up the flow, we'll be able to easily pick our notebook in our section. So that is one thing that just make sure you have one and before you start the flow here. So for me, I already have it ready to go. So let me come back and let's go ahead and get started here with this one. So I'm going to click on save. So going back to start setting it up, go to Power Automate, go to the Home tab, and let's pick this save a message to. And as you can see, right, I don't have that one yet. I have these other random flows that are doing some other automation. So I want this save a message to OneNote, which is pretty popular. I'm going to click on it. And the first thing that comes up here, is our prompt to create this flow. And this, I need you to do two things here. We need to confirm that one, feel free to change the message, the name, the flow name. By default, right, this is going to be called save a message to OneNote. You're welcome to change this to something else that you want. Just remember what you called it. And then this is going to automatically sign you in. So if you've never created a flow, right, when you first clicked on this, you may have noticed that this little, check mark, before it turned green, it was likely spinning, creating those connections for you. So we want to make sure that we get all green check marks for this. This is basically telling you that this flow is going to connect to Microsoft Teams, of course, and then it's going to connect to OneNote so that we can send those messages, right, and additional text that we are going to include for the workflow. And it also uses the 365 users connector, which is only used to get our information to include on some of those notes. So from here, we're going to, so once you get the green check marks, you'll be able to click next. And on the next step, we need to provide two things. So it's asking for notebook in which to add the message to. So I'm going to click on this, and this should recognize any notebook that you have access to. Some of you may see a lot. Go look for the particular notebook that you want to configure this flow with. In my case, I have two. This is a team notebook, and then there is a personal notebook. So I'm seeing in chat, got an error for a message for Office 365 users. If you can get a screenshot of that and post the error messages, and that'll help me see what could be going wrong with it. Sometimes it may put a fixed connection. If there's a hyperlink, right to the right of that, click on that, and that might take us outside of Microsoft Teams to fix that connection. But hopefully not everyone is running into that there. Let me look at chat, make sure. Have a red check mark. Let's see, just looking at chat, make sure that we're not having a lot of common issues.
Mars, it seems like there's just some admin related issues that they need to work through a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you for the screenshot there. So on that last one, if you click the three dots to that red exclamation mark, click the three dots. Just more information. Sometimes if you happen to be on a mature client with, that means that your Power Platform admins may also have DLP policies set up on the environment that these flows are being created on, where some connectors may not be allowed. So that might be another explanation of why some of you may not be able to successfully create that connection. And again, we'll keep tab of that because I'm happy to chat with your IT admins to make sure that some of these connectors are not blocked. And these three that this flow uses, all these three connectors, right? I want them to be able to be used because they're standard. They're standard connectors. So I'm going to move, because of time, I'm going to move to quickly, successfully set this flow up, and we'll come back and answer anything else through chat. So I want to give Brianna some time here towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and select personal notebook. And the next thing I'm going to select is the section that I showed you that I created, notes from Microsoft Teams. I'm going to click create. And this should be fairly quick. This will create, and then you will get this workflow added successfully. And I'm going to click done. And this will tell you, this actually tells you, right, where you can trigger this flow from. So I'm going to demo. Now that the flow is created, if I go back to my home tab, you can see that this flow showed up and it's automatically enabled for you, right? I don't even need to go and mess with it. I don't need to add anything else. It's ready to go. So how do I trigger? How do I actually use this flow? So this flow uses a very popular for a selected item trigger, which basically allows you to go to any chat message in Teams and send that over to OneNote. So let's go to this HLS Community Connection team that I have here. And I'm going to go to the general channel. And here's the message that test user 3 sent me with a really good link that I want to save for the future. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to more actions. And then here's this. Under more actions, you're going to see the name of that flow. So if any of you gave it a different name, right, it's not going to be save a message to OneNote. It will be whatever name you gave it. I'll click on this. And this is going to bring up what's called an adaptive card, right? So this allows me not only to send that message as is, but I can actually provide some additional information, such as this is a fantastic link. So this is all part of that custom flow, all that part of that template flow that we're installing. Link, and then I'm going to click submit, and this will take a few seconds, and then it should prompt me with another card that says, hey, successful. I can click on this, and the moment I click on this, this is going to take me to my OneNote notebook to show me that particular message that I just saved, right? And the way this works, if I go and find, let me go do that again, just so you can kind of see, I'll do another one. So let me close this. I'm going to go to my private chat because it also works for private chats. For private chats, one thing that you may notice is that I don't need to go down to more. If I want to save it, I don't need to go. It's going to put it right here. So you see how it took a few seconds for it to load. You don't need to go all the way to more actions. It automatically brings it into the quick menu the moment you click the 3 dots. I'm going to do the same thing. For this one, I'm not going to put any notes. I'm just going to like submit it and make sure that it's also working for private chats. And there we go. He sends that additional message. And the way it works is that any message that you decide to save, it's going to create a new page for that section, right? That's how it's working. So now I have that. And someone mentioned, hey, can I use OneNote in Teams? Definitely. So if I go back to my one of my teams that I had here, I actually have added that personal notebook. I've added a tab directly to that notebook. So pretend that I was sending this to a team notebook that a lot of people had access to, right? I would rather use that, and then we can all have a collection of messages. And the reason for this flow, right? Often people are sending us good links, and we need a better way to organize and often annotate those links. So that's why I like demoing this one. It's a very popular one to get started from. So I see there's, a lot of chatter in chat. I won't have, because of time, like I kind of told the team, right? Sometimes it goes pretty quick, but at least I wanted to make sure that we accomplished, at least getting you set up with one of the flows for those of you that were able to successfully follow along. And I know, apologies for those of you that may have encountered one of the roadblocks that we mentioned there at the beginning. So I'm not getting the send to OneNote. Fix my issue to go into the line and log in back in. So again, if you did successfully set up the flow to access that, right? If we're doing it from a message in chat, from a channel chat, if we go back to post, sometimes it takes it a few seconds. So if you go to more actions, this is where you're going to see it, right? You're going to see it with whatever name you gave it. Give it a little bit. Again, if it's not refreshed, come back to it and it should be there as long as we follow all the steps correctly. But this is just, again, one example. Unfortunately, due to time, I won't be able to show you how to create one from scratch, but you do have the PDF guide that walks you step by step on how to go through and create one from scratch to start building your own flows. But my best advice to those of you is look at other templates. Get started from templates easy, so you don't have to even, figure out where to tie things into your triggers and actions. So I'll look at questions. With that said, I'm going to pass it over to Brianna. She has another resource similar, kind of follows along with this topic of bringing some of our additional apps into Teams.
Hi, thank you so much, Morris. That was a wonderful demo. Just really quick, I wanted to share with you, if you're feeling inspired by today's event and you're trying to think through use cases that might be a good fit, we do have a modern work industry innovation guide for healthcare as well as other industries. And so this guide is specific to frontline workers. However, if you have information workers who might benefit from Power Automate use cases, we do have resources available through your CSMs that can help with that. But this link will be posted at the same link that Sarah had shared earlier in the blog. So you could just check this out if you're learning about different types of solutions that you might want to provide to your organization. So with that, I'll hand it back to Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks, Brianna. Appreciate that. Morris, amazing. I know we're at the bottom of the hour. We appreciate everyone coming and joining us today. The recording will be up on the HLS Community Connection site. We'll be setting a follow-up. And more importantly, we look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jonathan. And Morris, can you pull up that slide just in case we have a lot of members that I know in the beginning said that they just got the invite. They don't know how they did. We'll actually upload the slide right now where you can actually scan or actually submit through a web browser your information, and we'll include you on our next event. It was our Yammer group, but if you saw the announcement earlier this week, Yammer is now moved on to the Viva Engage. So just note that if you fill that out, you will see all of our upcoming sessions. A couple of things just to note, I know we're 1 minute over, so forgive us, is we continue to have these sessions on a monthly basis moving forward, 30-minute quick sessions, but we are teaming up for the Teams Productivity Summit. We're looking at April, so just note you may see Morris again talk through some of these great examples. So thanks again, everyone. You'll see this video posted later on today. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.